Well, hello out there. This is Steve Helwagen with Bucknuts.com, 24/7 Sports, here on Friday, February the 6th, one day after Ohio State went to Maryland and took an 82-62 win over the Terrapins. The Buckeyes improved to 15-7 overall, 7-5 in Big Ten play. Maryland drops to 8-14, and 1-10 in the Big Ten. First year for Buzz Williams as the coach out there, and he's obviously going to have to do a roster revamp. They have nobody back from last year's team, and may not have anybody back from this year's team. I don't know. But the Buckeyes needed to go out there and take care of business against that struggling Maryland team, and they did. Jumped on them. They were ahead by 12 points at one juncture in the first half, and that's what they led by at the half, 42-30. And then they gradually kind of built the lead out, and eventually let's see what the largest lead was. It was 22 points at 81-59 there late in the second half. So the Buckeyes were able to win this one comfortably on the road. And a loss in this game obviously would have been almost a disqualifier for Ohio State to go out and lose a Tier 3 game on the road at Maryland, but they were able to come through and get the win. And I wanted to share some thoughts about that. I know obviously you take it with a grain of salt because it was Maryland, which has now lost 8 of its last 9 games, 4 games in a row. And all 8 of those losses in this stretch by double digits. So Maryland has not been competitive much here at all. Ohio State improves to 2-7 all time at the Xfinity Center. It's been a very difficult place to play for Ohio State. And in fact, last year lost there by over 20 points. I think that Mata had a team that went in there and lost by 30 points one time. And really, you put a star by both of these wins for Ohio State. 2021 was the empty arena because of COVID, practically empty arena. They were probably allowed to have about 1,000 people there. And then this game, you got to put a star by it because this is one of the worst Big Ten teams I think we've seen. In fact, you could take the Rutgers, Penn State, and the Maryland teams this year, all in somewhat of a triangle here in the Eastern U.S., and put them together, and maybe even Oregon too. They're really struggling this year, but 3 or 4 really, really bad Big Ten teams this season. This game, going into this game, we talked a lot about, some different storylines and some themes that you would look for in this game. And I think 2 of the biggest were Christoph Tilley, the center, and John Mobley Jr., the guard. And Tilley had missed the Penn State game prior to OSU's last game, which was the loss at Wisconsin. And obviously in the Wisconsin game, Tilley came back, but he wasn't the least bit effective. He was scoreless. He was 0 for 8 from the floor. And obviously you're looking for much more out of him. You're looking for anything out of him, but certainly he came through in a big way in this game last night. 19 points, 7 of 10 from the floor. 1 of 1 on threes, 4 of 7 at the free throw line. Only 3 rebounds. We'll give him a pass on that. 27 minutes, very effective. And I think his plus minus in this game was 22. So when he was on the court for his 27 minutes, Ohio State dominated the action. And it was great to see him be so aggressive, taking the ball to the basket and finishing plays and drawing fouls and doing all the things you want to see a 7-footer do in the Big Ten. So Christoph Tilley going into Sunday's game at Michigan, which we'll get into here in a little bit, that is a good sign, certainly, that he is primed and ready to go for the University of Michigan. The other one was John Mobley Jr. In the 4 games prior to Wisconsin, he had averaged 25 points per game and almost hit 50% of his three-pointers. Didn't go as well for him at Wisconsin, only 5, or I believe he had 9 points and ended up 1 of 8 on threes. So a very difficult game for him. He came back and was outstanding yesterday. He ended up with 15 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists in 34 minutes. and he was 5 of 9 on threes in the game yesterday against Maryland. He did a couple real long ones as well, and a couple at various points in the game where Maryland was trying to get a little bit of a foothold, and then whap, there goes another three from Mobley, and the Buckeyes have increased the lead again. Obviously, the big theme coming out of Wisconsin was the terrible defense that the Buckeyes played in that game at Wisconsin, allowing Wisconsin to score on 10 straight possessions in the first half, 9 straight in the second half. They hit a bunch of threes, 52% from the floor. Ohio State much better in this game. Maryland ended up 31% on three-pointers, 8 of 26. The Buckeyes in this game forced 16 turnovers, and they scored a whopping 24 points off those turnovers. And that is, to me, some people say, what does that statistic mean? In some cases, it's live ball turnovers where the ball's going the other way, and Ohio State did a great job at converting those. Tilly went in for 2 or 3 baskets after live ball turnovers. You also have the traveling, and somebody throws it out of bounds. And basically what that means is Maryland comes off of a scoreless possession, and Ohio State is able to put another 2 points or 3 points or whatever on the board and build somewhat of a momentum and a lead. If you're able to get those points off of turnovers, they really help you build momentum in a game like this, and I think that's what the avalanche was for Ohio State, to never really let Maryland get back into this game in the second half. Got to talk about Tayson Chapman as well, the third-year sophomore guard. His first 19 games this year was not in double figures, but since then, he has been outstanding. He had 11 points in the win over Penn State and then 14 points in the loss at Wisconsin. A lot of questions about his defense coming out of that game. He played much better defensively in this game against Maryland, did not allow his opponent to get into the paint and score baskets. He had 10 points himself. He had 2 3-pointers in the first half when the Buckeyes were building their lead, including one early in the game when I didn't even know that they had slipped him into the game for John Mobley. That was pretty impressive. And overall, defensively, I think what we saw was Ohio State executing a defensive plan, which for much of the game was a 2-2-1 three-quarters court press, where you're picking the guards up in the backcourt, and it's almost token pressure. You're not trying to force a turnover per se in the backcourt. You're just trying to slow them down. And how many times last night did we see Maryland cross the timeline with about 22 seconds left on the shot clock? So you've already taken 1/3 of the shot clock out of their hands and made it much easier to get a stop, because now in the half court you only have to defend for about 20 seconds before they're going to have to take a shot. And Maryland ended up with some really bad shots and bad possessions and turnovers because they were rushing and different things like that. So I give Ohio State a ton of credit for what they were able to do defensively. Again, it was Maryland, so take it with a grain of salt. Another big game for Bruce Thornton. He had slumped a little bit in recent weeks, but 17 points, 7 of 9 from the field, 3 of 6 at the foul line, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and he may have had a steal or 2 as well. So he was tremendous in this game. And Bruce Thornton became just the 6th player in Ohio State history to eclipse the 1,900 point mark in career scoring. He is 6th on the career list now. Running down that list, it's Dennis Hobson, 2,096 points. Herb Williams, 2,011. Jerry Lucas and William Buford tied for 3rd with 1,990. And then Kelvin Ramsey, 1,934. So he is in reach in the next game if Thornton can get 21 points against Michigan on Sunday. He would match Kelvin Ramsey for 5th place on the career scoring list. Somebody did a look at this. They have 9 regular season games left, in at least one Big Ten tournament game. If he can average 18.3 points in those games, he would match Dennis Hobson for the career lead, close to 2,100 points. So we'll see how close Bruce Thornton can get, or if he can take that record down. Obviously, the competition's going to be tough. These aren't the November and December bye games that the Buckeyes are playing anymore. They're playing ranked opponents like number 2 ranked Michigan coming into the Schottenstein Center on Sunday. Devin Royal, been down a little bit here. I don't know if he's been dealing with some illness or whatever, but he had 7 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists. He had 3 fouls in the first half, and that kind of limited his availability. Amari Bynum, 5 points. So got to get those 2 forwards going again, and going to need them particularly defensively and offensively in the game on Sunday against Michigan if they're going to have a chance to win that game. I guess I can turn the page to the Ohio State-Michigan game on Sunday. Michigan is one of the hottest teams in college basketball right now. They are 21-1 overall, which is the best start in the history of Michigan basketball. 21-1. They are 11-1 in Big Ten play, tied with Illinois atop the Big Ten. And just pulling out, obviously, this game will be a rematch from about a week and a half ago where Ohio State went up to Ann Arbor and dropped a decision. I think it was a Saturday night game, maybe 2 weeks ago. 74-62 was the final score. This game was dead even practically. Michigan had a 52-51 lead with 8 minutes to go in the game. They then went on a 19-5 run, and we're up 71-56 with 3 minutes remaining. So at that point, Ohio State didn't have a chance, but the Buckeyes were their own worst enemies. They allowed Michigan to force 14 turnovers. 10 of those came on Michigan steals. Michigan also blocked 6 shots in the paint, and it was their big men, Yaxel, Lindeborg, and Merez Johnson, who really came up big in that game. They were kind of the stalwarts that had Michigan in this game for much of that early portion, and then down the stretch, it was the guard, Elliot Cadeau, who hit 2 critical three-pointers during that 19-5 run where Michigan took control of the game. John Mobley Jr. played really well the first time against Michigan, 22 points, 4 of 10 on threes. Christoph Tilley knows he can go against those bigs from Michigan as well. He had 17 points in that game. Bruce Thornton, it was an off game for him. They kind of put him in a box. He was 3 of 11 on field goals, 10 points. And again, coming back to Amari Bynum, just 5 points, and Devin Royal, just 4 points. Those guys didn't play particularly well the first time against Michigan, didn't play particularly well yesterday against Maryland. In fact, the first 15 minutes of the game, I don't even know if Amari Bynum had a touch. And then finally, I think it was Mobley rifled a pass inside to him, I think for a dunk. And finally, Bynum got on the board yesterday against Maryland. So the Buckeyes are going to need those guys. How good is Michigan? They are number 1 in the Ken Palm rankings. They are number 2 in the AP poll and the coaches poll, and number 3 in the NCAA net rankings. And they've been number 1 for a good portion of the season in the net, but Arizona in particular has moved ahead of them. They've won 7 games in a row since their loss at home to Wisconsin. 6 of those wins have been by double digits. They had an amazing week last week. They beat Nebraska, number 5 ranked Nebraska, 75-72 at home. And then they went on the road up to Michigan State last weekend, number 7 Michigan State, and they humbled the Spartans, led that one from start to finish, 83-71. In the big, bitter rivalry game up there in East Lansing. And Michigan, it had been several decades, I believe, since Michigan had last beaten 2 top 10 teams in the same week of the regular season. The Nebraska game was Merez Johnson. He was the star, 17 points and 12 rebounds. Trey McKinney, their great freshman guard. I've seen this kid play on a lot of AAU circuits. And not a surprise that he has gone into Michigan and found success as a freshman. 11 points, and people will remember he had to play at the end of the Nebraska game where he basically ran over Sam Hoiberg and laid the ball in for one of the key baskets to give them the lead for good, and they won the game 75-72 after trailing Nebraska for much of that game. And, of course, Nebraska played that game without Rink Mast as well. Michigan State, 83-71. Michigan won that game. That was the Axel Lindeborg game, 26 points, 12 rebounds. He's been a walking double-double this year for Michigan. Elliot Cadeau, 17 points, Merez Johnson, 12, and Tyler McKinney, 10. So they got great balance. And then in the warm-up for last night's Ohio State-Maryland game on Fox Sports 1, it was the Penn State visiting Michigan. As we said, Penn State going through a miserable season this year and made even more miserable last night. 110-69. Michigan just barreled over them. They were up 32 points at halftime and did not let up off the throttle, not one bit there in the second half. Namari Burnett, we haven't mentioned his name yet for Michigan. He's another one of the key guards on that team, 31 points. He was 7 of 10 on threes. So that'll tell you, I've told you about the other guys, Johnson, Lindeborg, Cadeau, McKinney, and now you've got Namari Burnett coming off a career game for him, 31 points, 7 of 10 on threes. Tyler McKinney also 12 points, and Merez Johnson 12 points and 8 rebounds in that game for Michigan against Penn State. So we will have to see. Obviously, when we get into this a little further, Jake Diebler was supposed to meet with the media today, but the Ohio State airplane coming out of Maryland last night, they weren't able to leave. They had some plane malfunctions. They were still trying to get off the ground as of the last check, probably getting back to Columbus sometime soon. And so they're a little bit road weary, probably coming off this Maryland game. They'll probably have a practice tonight to kind of go over some things and get started on Michigan. And obviously we'll have tomorrow to prepare for the Michigan game as well. Sunday, 1 o'clock, they want to scarlet out the shot, and we'll see what kind of a crowd they get. Number 2 ranked Michigan coming in. And obviously we're getting a little bit of weather here in Central Ohio today, a little bit of snow flurries, probably about an inch or so more on the ground to go with the previous accumulation that we had, but fans by Sunday should be able to get to the shot. It'll be a little bit cold for them, but my guess is we'll probably have a crowd in the 14 or 15,000 range for this game. And how critical would this be for Ohio State's NCAA hopes? As of yesterday, Joe Lunardi had Ohio State in as one of the last 4 teams in, playing in the first 4 in Dayton. You heard, if they said it once, they said it 20 times in the broadcast. Ohio State, first team out. Ohio State, first team out. That's by Mike DeCourcy of Fox Sports and the Sporting News. He had Ohio State as his first team out as of yesterday. I'm not sure if he's put them back in the bracket after that rousing victory over a terrible Maryland team. Probably not enough to make a move for the Buckeyes on his bracket, but you get the idea. The Buckeyes are scratching and clawing for every victory they can get to get in consideration for an NCAA tournament berth. And what would it mean if they could beat Michigan at home on Sunday? We've seen upsets like this before. They beat Purdue when they were number 2, I believe. The first game that Jake Diebler was the acting head coach in the shot 2 years ago. They went to Purdue last year and beat the Boilermakers at Mackey Arena last year. Also beat a top 5 Kentucky team in Madison Square Garden last year. They don't have a win over a ranked team yet this season. So the Buckeyes definitely need to get one of those games down the stretch, whether it's this one, the home game with Purdue, the game at Michigan State. There's a game at Iowa as well. Some very tough opponents coming up for the Buckeyes. Obviously, the Virginia game next Saturday in Nashville. We are hoping to get down to Nashville to see that game in person. So should be a lot of fun. And obviously, Virginia is also a top 10 team at this point. So that'll pretty much wrap things up for this edition of the of Steve Says video edition, Bucknuts basketball breakdown, as we like to say. We will be back with our preview of the Michigan rematch tomorrow on the site, so check that out. We'll have a prediction. If I had to say what the line is, I'd predict Michigan favored by 5 or 6 points, I would think, and probably an over-under in the 150 range, somewhere in that vicinity, but we'll know the line tomorrow probably. And one last thought, I want to throw in congratulations. Ohio State women's basketball coach Kevin McGuff got his 500th win, and he got it at Washington, one of the places where he used to coach. I think he coached Washington before he came to Ohio State. The Buckeyes won last night, 70-60 on the first half of their West Coast swing. They have a game Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern time at Oregon. It's on Big Ten Network Plus. 70-60 last night. Jelani Cambridge there. I think she's an All-American, certainly all Big Ten player, 26 points and 7 rebounds. She's just been on a downhill run. And Ohio State, number 9 in the country, which would make them basically a 3 or 4 seed for the NCAA tournament. That means they'd be hosting once again on the weekend at the Schottenstein Center, the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. They failed to get out of the first weekend at home the last 2 years after making the Elite Eight the previous year. Ohio State women 21-3 overall, 10-2 in the Big Ten. And going down the stretch there, trying to fight and get in position to contend for the regular season championship down the stretch. Some tough games still to come for them. So that'll wrap up our basketball show for today. Hope you enjoyed it. If you like these shows, definitely post a comment on the message board at Bucknuts and also on the Facebook page the YouTube page underneath the video. And looking forward to seeing as many Ohio State people as possible. I'm sure Jake Diebler is at the Schottenstein Center Sunday at 1 o'clock. And the game is broadcast on the greatest television network in the history of mankind, CBS. And I only say that in part because 24/7 Sports, my employer, is owned by CBS and Paramount Skydance. So we got to plug. It's also on Paramount Plus, certainly as well. So check it out Sunday, 1 o'clock on CBS. And for Bucknuts.com, this has been Steve Helwagen reporting. And everybody stay safe out there and stay warm.